sleep tight to sleep tight tonight. Sleep tight to sleep tight tonight.
Previously on the Conspiracy Theorists.
Okay, we're gonna start the meeting now. Okay, let's start. Clorg! What's up, man?
We have agents at this very moment cracking your rudimentary encryption. Oh, okay. That was weird.
My name is Colonel Jerome Tully of the Area 51 Division of the United States Air Force. This is an overview mission briefing for agents in the field concerning Operation Centaurus Cage. I would advise all personnel viewing this briefing to not only remember your oath of office and the Airman's Creed, but also your vow of utmost confidentiality regarding all matters related to your assignments here at Area 51. Now, we are in the midst of an ongoing mission to recover the extraterrestrial known as Clorg, who recently escaped the A-51 facility, to facilitate you in better understanding how this individual thinks so that it may aid you in bringing him home. Some background. Over 30 years ago, in 1987, Clorg was captured without incident when a farmer in Nebraska claims to have discovered a talking alien worm living in his sugar beet field. After many calls to the local authorities and eventually a journalist, the farmer, Jedediah Jameson, reached out to the U.S. military, who in turn took the being into custody. Here then is a videotaped statement from Mr. Jameson at that time.
Yes, sir. It was out in a field in the middle of about a dozen half-eaten sugar beets. It looked like a worm. It was about yay big. It spoke to my mind. It didn't speak out loud. I don't think it could even do that, what with the worm thing and all, but it was very polite. He was very curious about the Earth. He asked a question about Disney World, and he said he came in world peace. Actually, I hated to call the authorities on him. I just felt it was my American duty. Actually, I kind of miss him a little bit.
Clorg is a member of a parasitic alien species known as Gugujis, or species A51-09er, according to our internal classification. Gugujis hail from the brightest galaxy in the constellation Centaurus, NGC 4696. Now, this galaxy is approximately 145 million light years away from Earth. It's a long-ass way. And since it would take NASA millions upon millions of years to travel to such a galaxy, well, needless to say, the aliens' technology for space travel was and is of paramount interest to the Air Force. Clorg is a parasite, like I said. He looks like a damn worm in real life. But his species has the unique ability to take over the body of another species. He enters the human anatomy through the anus, swims along the path of the cerebrospinal fluid, finally settling in the frontal cortex. We found it helpful to give Clorg the recently deceased remains of a fallen soldier who had donated his body to scientific and medical research. I was a 20-year-old Air Force enlistee at that time when Clorg arrived, an airman fresh out of boot camp, and I befriended him at that time. I greatly enjoyed his company.
Clorg went through more than a physical transformation that summer. He informed us that his species was physiologically incapable of certain abilities that we humans normally take for granted, such as dreaming or artistic expression. His species, worms, were much more practical and scientifically minded. Logical beings, they do not dream. For example, their capacity for love is dimmed somewhat in their worm state and manifests itself in more predictable and perhaps practical chemical impulses. However, we soon learned that when species A51-0909 are commingled with human physiology, Clorg suddenly blossomed, one might say. Bam! Colors became brighter. He experienced dreams and nightmares, and deeper emotions started to emerge. Interestingly, he became quite enamored of the arts, and specifically the theater. We indulged these flamboyant tendencies and allowed him to perform with other personnel here on base in the newly formed Area 51 Players, Clorg in Guys and Dolls. His riff in West Side Story is still being talked about on the base here some 30 years later. Unfortunately, Clorg's insatiable love of the theater could no longer be contained within the confines of this base, and he grew restless. When he grew a beard and insisted it was only in the research of his newly adopted human body, we did not realize it was actually for his character in a production of Butterflies Are Free in nearby Las Vegas Little Theater. He received excellent reviews, but was subsequently recaptured. If you're unfamiliar with the play, I recommend streaming the delightful movie version starring a young Goldie Hawn.
Clorg did provide some Guguji technology. You may thank him for electronic toll collection, or ETC. In the field, we utilize this identification tech, also known in the military as friend or foe, or IFF, as a security measure to allow certain vehicles access to certain areas. He also gave us the unbreakable encoding technology used in this video bulletin. Unfortunately, Clorg was cagey about the prized technology we so desperately sought, his ship. He told us that his craft, because of irreversible damage to remote aviation controls, was irretrievable, invisible, and still hovering out there somewhere in the stratosphere. Now, we don't know if he was prevaricating, but if he was telling us the truth, we can only assume that his saucer-shaped vessel is still hovering out there somewhere, undetectable. So, due to Clorg's stubborn unwillingness to cooperate further, and his flight risk for escape, it was decided he should be put into permanent hibernation. The Deep Hibernation Chamber, or DHC, was the technology we had at our disposal in May of 1988. It slows the aging process greatly, much like that of a hibernating bear, but it is not like being frozen cryogenically. Clorg was scheduled to be moved to cryogenic stasis, a newer form of technology, in 2020. Never happened. Clues indicate that Clorg's chamber stopped working on January 26th of this year, and he was awoken. Now, we did not know this immediately, since these chambers are apparently only occasionally monitored by an inept security crew, now on latrine detail for the rest of their careers. We have since implemented more carefully monitored maintenance of the hibernation and cryogenic chamber rooms to better maintain our other guests. After an investigation following Clorg's escape, we came to discover that his chamber sprang a leak very soon after he was placed inside. So, instead of Clorg's aging being slowed to an almost imperceptible degree, he aged normally, 30 years in his chamber. We also learned that one of the tubes meant to supply a steady snail's pace drip of sugary nourishment paste was calibrated too high. So Clorg has put on a tremendous amount of weight over time. Now, we don't know if Clorg was asleep or awake during those 30 years. I sincerely hope, for his sake, he was asleep. Now, Clorg has escaped. He is out there, somewhere in the world. We believe he looks approximately 53 years old today. He may change host bodies. He may keep the one he has. We have no way of knowing. Here's an artist's rendering of what he might look like today, and a security cam shot of him escaping.
The recovery of Clorg is a highly sensitive and top secret internal mission for Area 51 agents, and we will not be employing outside assistance from agencies such as the FBI, the DoD, or the NSA. Many of you will be receiving specific recovery operation orders. This base is on high alert while searching for Clorg, and we are developing technology aimed at identifying him even if he switches host bodies. Now, I will say this. I was Clorg's friend those many years ago. It gave me no pleasure to put him into hibernation. I do not believe that he is a danger to humanity. His nature is peaceful. But if he takes a human life in order to switch human bodies, all bets are off. Take all necessary precautions in your search and bring Clorg back home to the base. That is all. Carry on.